Hi, welcome to today's video. My name's Paul. So this is day 3 of this watercolor challenge, short watercolor challenge. The last week of 2020 and the first week of 2021 has been quite cold here. We've had lots of snowy days and lots of frosty cold mornings. So I wanted to try and paint a landscape that was inspired by that sort of cold weather. Now, the color palette that I usually use isn't really suitable for that type of painting. The color palette that I tend to go to is better for spring or summer. So I have to change the colors that I use a little bit, or at least I'm reducing the number of colors. So this is only going to be cooler colors, blues and a little bit of purple or violet. So it's almost a monochromatic painting. The other difference is I tried to use a different type of brush, at least for the start of the painting, and you can see this. I tend to call this a hake brush, but actually it should be pronounced as a hake brush. It's actually, the name hake isn't an English name, it's a Japanese name. Now, it's a long time since I've lived in Japan, and my Japanese is very rusty, but as far as I remember, the word hake, it's made of 2 kanji characters. Those are the Chinese characters that the Japanese use in their writing system. The first one, I think, means something around the idea of printing or to print something. And then the second one, the K, is hair or fur. It makes sense because these type of brushes are usually made from goat's hair. They have a wider, flatter head. Usually I use a mop brush. The mop brush has, I guess, a kind of inverted teardrop shape. It has a point at one end, but it's quite a bulbous body to the brush head, if you like. So you can divide watercolor brushes into the different types. So the hake brush, the mop brush, rigger brush, which is used for very fine details and things. Another way of thinking about it is you can divide it into categories based on the material used. So in that case you have, I guess, 3 groups. Group 1 is the natural hair brushes. Group 2 is the synthetic hair brushes. And then there is also group 3, which is a mix of both synthetic and natural hair brushes. And the natural hair and the synthetic hair have their pros and cons, of course. So first of all, traditionally watercolorists tended to use natural hair brushes because they can hold a lot of water compared to a synthetic hairbrush. And the amount of water that the brush can hold and the amount of water that's on the paper, these are very important in watercolor painting. In fact, learning to use watercolor is really about learning to control the amount of water that's in the brush and is on the paper, or at least that's a very big part of it. The synthetic hairbrushes, they can't hold as much water. But of course they do have other advantages. First of all, they tend to be tougher. They have a longer lifespan. They will spring back into shape more easily. They're also, people who do painting styles that have lots of detail sometimes prefer the synthetic hairbrushes because they will give you crisper lines and they're better for small details probably. The style of painting I do uses more sort of implied detail, so I don't do lots of little fine detail, therefore I tend not to use the synthetic brushes so much. I think if you're getting started with watercolor, don't get too caught up in the types of brushes. I started out just with a mop brush, which the brush I'm using at the moment, and I've been using that brush for going on 2 years, so it does have a reasonable lifespan. It's still working fine. One of the other differences with the natural hair brushes, and you can sort of see it here, the hairs within the brush can be spread out a bit, and you can use that for creating different effects on the paper. Synthetic hair brushes don't really do that. They tend to stay within whatever shape they were designed to stay in. So then, as I say, with this painting, it's almost monochromatic painting. It's mostly just blues, and I wanted to get that sort of cold, snowy, frosty feeling. I'm quite happy with the painting. The composition maybe not as much, but overall I would give the painting a 7 out of 10. It's not the usual sort of painting I do, which tends to be more brighter colours and sort of summer or spring like feeling, which I prefer, but overall I was reasonably happy with this painting.